So we'll start here in line 540, and we can start with the word at, meaning but, and then we can go to ille, meaning he. We'll come back to the noun in a minute. So, but he, quo, from whom, mentiris. Now, mentiris means you lie or you deceive, or, in this instance, you falsely claim. Te, so now we're going into an indirect statement. You falsely claim that you, te, so you've got an accusative there, and then an infinitive here. Satum is short for satum esse. So he from whom you falsely claim that you are born, and then we're told who this person is, Achilles. And now we can fit in the known. Known fuit was not talis, was not talis, was not like this, was not of this kind. In plus ablative, in hoste priamo. Perhaps we would say towards his enemy Priam. So just to go over that again, but he, from whom you falsely claim that you are born, Achilles, was not of this kind towards his enemy Priam. So Priam is basically saying to Pyrrhus, you think that you're living up to your father's model or your father's example, but in fact, your father Achilles was nothing like this at all. He wasn't nearly this cruel or inhuman. And in fact, Priam goes as far as to sort of dig in, go for a real dig at Pyrrhus and say, actually, I don't even believe Achilles was your father. You're not worthy of him. So, then after the semicolon, said, but, erubuit, he respected and then the object is jura, the rights, fidemque, and the protection, supplicis, of a suppliant, genitive singular. So Achilles respected what is owed to a suppliant. A suppliant is somebody who begs another person for mercy, and in ancient thought, the idea is that if somebody supplicates someone else, begs for mercy, then they ought to be shown mercy. And Achilles followed that code, whereas his son Pyrrhus is not following that code. Okay, but he respected the rights and protection of a suppliant, i.e. the protection owed to a suppliant, and he gave back, redded it, and then the object is ex sangue, which is bloodless, and corpus, which is a corpse or a body. So he gave back the bloodless corpse, and there's another adjective describing corpus, which is hectoreum. So that literally means Hectorian, but in English we would just say of Hector. So he gave back the bloodless corpse of Hector to the tomb. So sepulchro is dative singular, to the tomb. And he sent me back, remisit me, so me is the object of remisit, he sent me back in mea regna, in plus accusative, into my kingdom. And regna here is plural grammatically, but I would translate it as singular. He sent me back into my kingdom. So this is a reference to the fact that earlier in the Trojan War, after Achilles had killed Hector, Priam's son, he then, when Priam came to visit Achilles to beg for Hector's body back so that he could bury it, Achilles did indeed give the body back and allow Priam to return to Troy and bury it. Okay, seek thus, or in this way. Fatus, this is short for fatus est. It looks passive, but it's from a deponent verb, and it means spoke. So thus spoke, and then the subject is senior, thus spoke the old man. Senior is just like senex. So thus spoke the old man. And he hurled, coniecit, his, and then the object is imbelle
telum. Imbelle meaning unwarlike or weak, and telum meaning a spear. So he hurled his weak spear, sine ictu, sine plus ablative, without power. Okay, so thus spoke the old man and hurled his weak spear without power. Which, quod, and this word which refers back to the spear because it's neuter, which was immediately protinus, just like statim, it means immediately, repulsum, this is short for repulsum est, perfect passive, so it means was deflected. Okay, so which was immediately deflected by, and now we have an ablative phrase, rauco aire. Rauco meaning echoing, like raucous in English, and aire meaning bronze. So which was immediately deflected by the echoing bronze. In other words, Priam throws his spear kind of feebly at Pyrrhus, and the spear just bounces off Pyrrhus's shield. Okay, and it hung, pependit, perfect tense, it hung in vain, nequiquam, in the sense that it hasn't done any damage, it hung in vain from, and now we're going to get an ablative phrase meaning from the sumo umbone. Sumo meaning top of, and umbone meaning the boss, in the sense of the boss of a shield, right? It's that sort of metal bit on the front that sticks out. You can look it up on Google Images. Hung in vain from the top of the boss of the shield. So klipei is genitive case. So I'll just go back to seek here after the speech. So thus spoke the old man, and hurled his weak spear without power, which was immediately deflected by the echoing bronze, and hung in vain from the top of the shield's boss. Okay, then we're going to do a bit more actually here. So we're going to go on to qui Pyrrhus. Okay, so qui means to whom. It's called a connecting relative because it refers back to somebody in the previous sentence. Here I would just say to him, Pyrrhus, and then we have to imagine a word like replied, like respondit, because this is quite compressed Latin here. To him, Pyrrhus replied, and then we go into direct speech. Ergo, then, or therefore, referes, future tense, you will report, and the object is haec, these things, neuter plural, you will report these things, and you will go, ibis, future of eo, you will go as a messenger, nuntius, you will go as a messenger, and then we have a dative noun, genitori, to my father, right? Genitor is a more poetic word for pater, so you will go as a messenger to my father, and then the father is identified with this dative noun, peilidai. This is another patronymic, right? It's a way of identifying someone as son of somebody, right? In this case, son of Peleus, and that is Achilles. Okay, so he says, just to go back, then you will report these things, and you will go as messenger to my father, Peleus's son. And then in the next sentence, he says, there's an imperative at the end of line 549 here, where he says, remember, and this is followed, or this goes with an infinitive, narrare, remember to relate to him, so illi is the dative of ille, remember to relate to him, mea, my, tristia, sad or sorry, facta, deeds. So remember to relate to him my sorry deeds. And again, we've got a lot of sarcasm here. Of course, Pyrrhus doesn't really believe that his deeds are sad. He thinks they're glorious, but he's speaking in a sarcastic tone. So he says,
remember to relate to him my sorry deeds, and quae, and then this phrase is still the object of narrare, remember to relate to him his degenerem Neoptolemum, his degenerate Neoptolemus. And remember, Neoptolemus is just an alternative name for the speaker here, Pyrrhus. So just to go back over that bit there, he says, then you will report these things, and you will go as messenger to my father, Peleus' son. Remember to relate to him my sorry deeds and his degenerate Neoptolemus. So basically he's saying, I'm about to kill you, and then you can go down to the underworld and whinge all you like to my father about how mean I am, and so on. Okay, and then this speech ends with a very kind of abrupt sentence. Nunc morere. Nunc means now, and then morere is an imperative meaning die. Right, so he says, now die. Then in the next sentence, we're out of Pyrrhus' speech now. Hoc decens. So decens means saying, and hoc is the object meaning this. You can tell that decens is a present participle from the ns at the end. So saying this, he traxit, and we assume the subject is Pyrrhus. He dragged him, we assume the object is Priam. He dragged him, ad plus accusative, to the altaria ipsa, to the altar itself, right? And ipsa emphasizes that this is such a sacrilegious thing. He's actually going to kill him on the very altar, right? So he and altaria is plural grammatically, but we can translate it as singular. He dragged him to the altar itself, and then we get another present participle, which you can recognize from the letters nt in the middle, and it's accusative, so it's describing Priam, not his killer, Pyrrhus, right? Priam is described as trembling, and then there's another present participle, lapsantem, slipping, in plus ablative, the multo sanguine, the much blood, the copious blood, and then nati is genitive, of his son. Remember, natus is a poetic word for son, like filius in prose. Okay, so saying this, he dragged him to the altar itself, trembling and slipping in the copious blood of his son. And, quae, he, and again, Pyrrhus is the subject, he implicuit, he entwined, and then the object is comam, his hair, so he sort of, he entwined, he sort of grabbed Priam's hair, laiwa, ablative case, with his left hand, and, quae, with his right hand, dextra, ablative case, with his right hand, he extulit, he raised, and then the object is coruscum einsem, coruscum meaning flashing, and then einsem is a sword, like a gladius, so raised the flashing sword, and ac, buried it, abdid it, buried it, literally to his side, lateri, dative case. In English we would say in his side, buried it in his side, right, just like the word lateral in English, buried it in his side, and then tenus plus ablative means all the way to, or as far as, and there is the ablative capulo, so as far as the hilt. Capulo is a hilt, i.e. the handle of the sword. So Pyrrhus buries the sword in Priam's side all the way, he pushes the sword all the way in right up to the handle. Okay, I'll just go back through that quickly from Hoc decens in line 550. Saying this, he dragged him to the altar itself, trembling and slipping in the copious blood of his son, and entwined his hair with his left hand, and with the right raised the flashing sword and buried it in his side as far as the hilt. Okay, then hike means this, and we have to imagine a verb here like erat or fuit, right? This was the finis, the end, of the fortunes, fatorum, genitive plural, of Priam, genitive singular. In other words, this is how Priam died. This was the end of Priam's fortunes. Hic exitus, this end, like exit in English, this end, tullit, took away, and the object is illum, him. So this end took him away by fate, sorte, by fate. This end took him away by fate. Seeing, so videntem is a present participle, as you can tell from the nt in the middle, and it's accusative in the ending, so it refers back to Priam, illum. So this end took him away by fate, seeing, and then the object is Troiam in Cainsam, Troy having been burned in Cainsam, having been set alight. It's a PPP, perfect passive participle. So, in other words, Priam died seeing Troy set alight, and at Pergama, right? Pergama is the citadel of Troy, the sort of defended high point of Troy, having fallen, prolapsa, PAP, perfect active participle, because it comes from a deponent verb. So, just to go back a little bit to hike, this end took him away by fate, seeing Troy set alight and Pergamus fallen. Okay, and then I would go with quondam, once. So this is talking about Priam, right? So you can imagine something like is qui, right? He who was once, erat quondam. It's very compressed, the Latin here. We're just given the word quondam, meaning once. So Priam was once, and then you've got an ablative phrase, tot populis, with so many peoples, and lands, terrisque, and lands, the proud, superbum, ruler, regnatorem, of Asia, Asiae, genitive singular. So the point is how the mighty have fallen. You know, Priam was once with so many peoples and lands. You know, he once had so many peoples and lands. He was the proud ruler of Asia. Asia here referring to what the Romans considered Asia, which is basically Turkey. And now, of course, he's been defeated and overthrown. Okay. Then let's go on here. Yaket, he lies, as in not tells a lie, but he lies down. He lies. Remember, there's a difference between yakio in Latin with an I, that means I throw, and yakeo with an E, that means I lie down. And this is yakeo. So yaket, he lies there. An ingains truncus, a huge body, on the shore. So litore is ablative, and we imagine the word in before it. In litore, on the shore. Presumably someone has moved his body now from the palace to the shore. The Greeks have kind of dumped it, maybe, on their way home. So he lies, a huge body on the shore. And, a head, caput, having been torn, avulsum, PPP, perfect passive participle, a head having been torn from its shoulders, so umeris is ablative plural, meaning from, torn from its shoulders, and et, a body, corpus, without a name, sine nomine. That's sine plus ablative, meaning without. So I'll just go back to, I'll just do these last few lines from hike. So this was the end of Priam's fortunes. This end took him away by fate, seeing Troy set alight and Pergamus fallen. He who was once, with so many peoples and lands, the proud ruler of Asia. He lies, a huge body on the shore, and a head torn from its shoulders, and a body without a name.